and innovations can be put under pressure in times of crisis. The need for security approach that goes beyond just high walls and containment, yet continues to foster the physical and mental well-being of both staff and inmates, remains just as, or perhaps even more pressing. The next group, represented by Ole Stageberg from the University College of the Norwegian Correctional Service, will share their insights on how dynamic security can be fostered and ingrained into training practices. Ole, please go ahead.
Thank you, Lisa. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. And do you see the PowerPoint? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends, I'm going to present work on the special interest group of dynamic security. We set a headline for this presentation, and it's the following headline: training to achieve the mindset and culture needed to create dynamic security. The group consists of those 4 persons: Henrik from Finland, Jean-Philippe from Belgium, and Laura from Estonia, and myself from Norway. 4 persons with different backgrounds and also from different regimes. So it's been very interesting and a good learning period. We had 1 meeting face-to-face, and we didn't reach the lockdown for the second meeting, so after that we have just had online meetings. And that's also an experience, of course. Our mandate was to have a comparison of European training on the topic dynamic security and highlight some best practices. Have a description of minimum standards for training on the topics based on international regulation and guidelines, and the practical handbook for developing training curricula. As Lisa said, all the groups have the same mandate and the same content. This is also for our group. We have 3 chapters or 3 deliveries. One of them, European comparison on best practices, and under this headline we had a lot of discussions between the members and the participants in the group, and where we are today in the topic of dynamic security. And it's a chosen selection of best practices we are presenting in this chapter. On the minimum standards, we had lots of discussions also. What could be the minimum standards for requirements for education and training on these topics that we have chosen, and also taking into account the European and international guidelines and regulations. And the last deliveries is to create a handbook or a guideline for training and establish a training curricula on respective topics. Also have an eye on the methodology we think is most appropriate and effective to achieve the goal in this goal to establish a good dynamic security practices in the regimes around Europe. First, some best practices, and this is only a selected input on what the different countries of the participating group members have shared. So this is only a view on some of these topics. First, from Belgium, they use one tool called Enneagram. I think it's a tool developed by a psychologist in the United States. And this is a tool for self-awareness and communication. What is very special about this tool is that it's conducted to both inmates and staff to train at the same tool, and that's create some outputs that we can see that will contribute to a good dynamic security approach. So it's very interesting to see this tool, and I will suggest that you look into this. And I know that Jean-Philippe from Belgium has a good insight and can tell you more about this if you wonder what the content is. From Finland, they highlight that they have tried to establish a new role for the prison officer and also a new officer training to also be updated with dynamic security and realization work elements. This new role is what they call the personal contact officer. As a Norwegian, I'm well known about this practice because we have had it for several years. And Finland has created an interactive work as a new approach to promote dynamic security, and also have this prison officer role that is holistic, that have a holistic responsibility for both rehabilitation, security, and also case management task. So it's a divided role, quite the same as we have in Norway. From my country, I would like to highlight that we like to think that we have had the dynamic security implemented, and it's a part of our our mindset and culture. I would like to think so, but that doesn't mean that we, of course, have to train new staff in that matter. I want to highlight from Norway that the training is a combination of theory and practice, including on-the-job training in prisons. And same as the Finnish prison officer and Norwegian prison officer are generalists with responsibility for both security and rehabilitation. Another best practice I will highlight is that we, the past year, worked a lot with risk assessment management, because every security measures, if they are static, dynamic, or organizational, it starts with a risk assessment. And we are training a lot to achieve knowledge and skills into routines for risk assessment. And we have developed a new system, practice that we call daily risk assessment. From Estonia, they would like to highlight the best practices on simulation training. They have a rather new training center with good facilities and also good simulation training facilities. And as they say, a prison officer must learn different skills where they take use of psychology, law, ethics, communicative, surveillance, and tactical skills. And in this regard, properly supported and supervised simulation training is a good option. It's an integrated learning system means that subjects are taught with multidisciplinary approach, and that teachers from different disciplines are present to supervise the situation. In the learning process, it is wise to start step by step, adding new subjects to simultaneous themselves one at a time. At the end of the training, it's possible then to have all the topics are practices together. Minimum standards. We have had a lot of discussion. What will be a minimum standards requirements? What is the minimum requirements should be for education and training on these selected topics that contributes to dynamic security? Establish a dynamic security is a concept and a working method will affect the entire organization and have an impact on its values, objectives, organization, and methods. And in the group, we have lots of discussion. What does this mean? Because dynamic security is about, first of all, the human factor, meeting between humans, and then meeting between staff and prisoners, but also meeting between prisoners and meeting between released prisoners in the society. And so it's quite a wide range of topics that can go under this topic. And also, if you trying to change or develop mindset and culture, it's also quite wide a topic. So the content will, as we discussed in the group, maybe be different from regime to one regime to another regime, and from one country to another country, considering the country's culture and so on, and the society, how the society is built up. Inside the correctional service, of course, is different regimes, and how we shall establish dynamic security in a maximum security unit will be a little bit different than we establish it in an open prison unit, of course. And also in Norway and other countries that have worked some years now with the dynamic security, we know that the staff ratio have big impact on how this work will adapt. Because ensuring a positive staff-inmate relations will also depend greatly on having an adequate number of staff present on any given time in detention areas and in facilities used by prisoners for activities. This is from CPT standards. And of course, it is depending on how we organize and how the management are conduct in each regimes. So there's a lot of discussion around these considerations. More specific to our chosen topics. Setting minimum standards can therefore be very extensive. The handbook will not be able to touch in all the topics but present ones we believe that are most fundamental to succeed in achieving good dynamic security, and which are at the same time based on international rules and guidelines. This is our selected standards. Of course, it may be other that also can be necessary to address in the training. But nevertheless, first of all, highlight the human rights and human dignity. In order to be successful when working with people, it's absolutely crucial that you safeguard human rights and human dignity in every approach. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the United States nation's standard minimum rules for treatment of prisoner, Nelson Mandela rules, must be basic knowledge for all those working in penitentiary system and should therefore be an introductory part of the education. Professional commitment and ethics. Rule of recommendations regarding ethics which should serve as guidelines towards a common professional base directly linked to the requirement of interpersonal skills and competence necessary for the approach to achieve dynamic security. And of course, the key element in dynamic security is to establish a professional, positive, and respectful relationship between staff and prisoners. That requires daily interaction and communication with prisoners. A central part of the training should therefore involve working to develop their interpersonal and communication skills. Another topic we highlight in this chapter is that dynamic security is depending on meaningful and purposeful activities such as work, school, programs, and sport leisure activities are necessary in a prison regime that wants to work for safer prison and succeed in the work of rehabilitation inmates and preparing them for their reintegration into society. Staff must therefore also have the competence to lead such kind of activities. Security and safety for staff and prisoners. To succeed in achieving dynamic security, both inmates and personnel must feel that they are, to a certain point, safe and in the safe environment. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a universal and clear theory of how human needs are connected. The basic needs and the need for security must be present before one can develop a positive social environment, relationship, and positive growth in the individuals. This is especially challenging in a prison situation, of course. Dynamic security is a method of creating the necessary feeling of security for both inmates and staff. A basic knowledge and understanding of human needs is a topic that must be included in the education of prison staff, along with risk assessments. We also like to highlight the quality of trainers. They should have good content knowledge. A trainer must have in-depth knowledge of the topic that they will train in. They should understand every detail of the prison environment, how the situation are in the units, how it is to talk to prisoners, to motivate prisoners, and how the different prisoners' personality and behavior will affect any situation you are entering in. It is reachable only by working in prison for some time, otherwise the topic is too theoretical. Without understanding the content, trainers are unable to simplify the content into teachable and relatable chunks of information. And the last chapter, we are not quite finished with it yet, but this is what we have so far. And we have set up how to build a training curricula. This is coming from a didactic approach, which is known in Norway and also think in Estonia. We are dividing the training curricula in these seven elements. Of course, an intro, why this topics is relevant. That's one. And we have to set the goal. What are the realistic goal on the teaching? What learning outcome is wanted Do you need an outcome that include both knowledge, attitude, and skills? Is it an important goal that the participants experience community in a group during training? And target group, of course, is important to set. What is the participants' prerequisites? Who is the target group? What learning prerequisites do they have? What do they need to learn, and what do they already know? And the content is seen in connection with goals and the person's target group learning prerequisites. The content must make it possible to achieve the goal within the existing framework. And one important thing is the pedagogical approach, the methodology. Which methods are best suited to achieve the goals that have been formulated with the framework that exists? Is it most useful to gather people in groups or meet them individually? Is dialogue and exchange of experience important, or are lectures best suited? Is it useful to use stories, role-playing games, activities, pictures, film, simulation training, and so on? What view one has on the learning will probably have an impact on the choice of pedagogical approach, methods, and tools. And every training should, of course, have an evaluation. Did we reach the goals? How did the methods work in relation to the goals, framework, and the target group, and so on? And we also have, in the end, the framework factors that we should consider. What opportunities and limitations are there related to a specific topic? Where should it take place? At school and or in the prisons? What is the required of technical support and other learning materials? What professional resources must be available, and how much time can they spend planning, implementing, and evaluating the teaching or supervision? What we discussed so far in this chapter, we have landed on one important thing that we see, and it's in the area of methodology. We have several angles on how teaching can be organized and how they facilitate learning process, which we believe will influence in the mindset and create the culture necessary to develop a good standard of dynamic security. And what we want to highlight so far, we are not finished, as I said, is mentorship on the job training. We see that the cooperation between the training center and prisons are crucial to have a good learning process. Develop the student skills, acquired experience and increased awareness of their own professional role through observation, interaction, and practical work in the field under the guidance of a mentor. And of course, the mentor should have a relevant professional qualification and experience on high standards. This, we think, will create an open learning environment, and it's essential to enable the candidates to reflect upon the relationships between professional skills, experience, and research-based knowledge. Yes, that was the last slide I had. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ole, for your presentation. So now there is some time for Ole and his fellow special interest group members, Henrik Lindeborg, Jean-Philippe Koopmans, and Laura Kikas, to answer some of your questions. You can also still, I haven't seen any questions yet, but you can still send in questions through the Q&A function. I do see a comment from Floris Mulder from Switzerland, who wanted to give some input on dynamic security as well. So perhaps refer to him for a moment.
Okay, Floris, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, the floor is yours. Please feel free to ask question or comment on what you just heard. Just a second, Floris. We'll activate your microphone. Okay, now it should be okay. Can you try to ask question or speak, Floris?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving the opportunity to give an input. First of all, I would like to thank Ole for his information concerning dynamic security. We just working on a web-based training program as an introduction to dynamic security. We're almost finished. We should finish the program at the end of this year. And we certainly would like to put it on the website so that you can have a look. It is an introduction to the dynamic security for all people working in our field of interest. And we might even put it available for on the internet so that people interested in this subject can look at it. It's a WBT and e-learning program from about 60 minutes. It's a kind of a learning program where people get accustomed to the subject. For the moment, we do not plan an English translation, but if there is any interest, we will be very glad to organize that. For the moment, we will make it available in German and French. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Floris. It sounds very interesting and definitely something that other EFTA members might find useful. So thank you for that comment. Then if there are no questions yet, let me ask a question to Jean-Philippe Thomas. I was wondering whether you can maybe elaborate on some of the challenges that you face within your training academy when implementing a training related to dynamic security.
Well, I think that the challenge that I face the most, and I think it's the same challenge everywhere in all training academies when they want to really establish a dynamic security culture, is that actually it's not in our DNA, it's not in our culture, it's counterintuitive. Because when you want to make real dynamic security, you have to go to the prisoners and really be aware that you will have many contacts and meaningful contacts. You really want to know the one you have in front of you. And as Ole said one day, the most powerful thing you could do to train prison staff on dynamic security is make a tattoo on the forehead of a prisoner, which would be MMFI, make me feel important. And just in that you see that this is counterintuitive and this is not our culture, but this is real dynamic security. So when I train all staff members in dynamic security, I see that the first reaction is that, oh, there's a threat there. There's a threat there. I will be too close to them. Well, how can I manage that? So that's the most difficult part of dynamic security training to me.
Thank you, Jean-Philippe. I think that might be something that other FM members can recognize maybe in their training institutions, and of course remains a big challenge. Then Hendrik, a question for you if you are here as well. Can you maybe tell something about some of the greatest misconceptions about dynamic security, and perhaps as a follow-up question, how sufficient staff training can overcome this challenge?
Can you repeat your question, please?
Yes, no problem. What, in your view, are some of the greatest misconceptions about dynamic security? And as a follow-up question, how can staff training help overcome this?
Okay, it was a rather difficult question. First, the misconceptions of dynamic security. I'm talking about the situation in Finland, that this is to maybe one misconception is that it can be a kind of threat to technical security thinking, which has been dominating, and this is a rather challenging question in the prison, in the everyday prison life here in Finland, for example. But I think this is the issue which we have to work with a lot, and to, in order to get or change the culture, because we have a very strong security thinking, which means that the control and technical security is the most important thing, and there is not so much place to interactive work and relational work and this kind of thing. But it's very hard to get a certain part of staff to think that this is a part of security too, if you can create security thinking with good relations with inmates and so on, so you know what's happening and so on, and this, that you have a good atmosphere in the prison also creates security in a way. I would say I have written a lot of this in this handbook. I'm not sure if I answered your question directly, but this is what I see is the most important issue.
Yes, I think that answered my question. Thank you. So let's see. Then next question, I guess, for Laura. So I have worked with you over the last year to develop these documents, and I was just wondering that perhaps maybe also that this cooperation with the special interest group, whether it has provided you with new insights as well on new insights that you can maybe apply within your own training academy.
Thank you for the question. And I have been thinking about this for the whole period. That important part for me to be when I'm part in that kind of groups is that what can I learn? What can I take over? And there are many small things, but the main thing I think in the end, where we are right now, is that the understanding what previous group members have indicated already before is that we should change the way of thinking the mindset training, that there are, when we are talking about dynamic security, there are many angles in our curriculums that are covered, but gather them all together, and ethics and moral are getting more and more important. They are in our curriculums nowadays, but to tie them together with dynamic security issues is something what we have to work more about. And that was the knowledge what we had before already in our on daily basis at school, but working together with others, the understanding that we are on the right way is something what I have gathered from here.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad to see that it has been insightful for you as well as experts on the topic. I guess then the final question, and also perhaps a link to John's presentation later. I will finish with Ola then. So I was wondering, how does leadership tie in when implementing training on dynamic security? Can you say something about that? Ola?
Yes. Maybe I'm not the right to answer this, because we have the understanding, and it is in our mindset and culture that dynamic security is approached also by the management in my country. But in general, it's important, of course, that management are a part of this change or this development. If not, we will not achieve what we are looking for. And especially that we try to establish trust between prisoner and frontline staff. That means that we also have to have trust in the system, that the frontline staff have to have the trust of the management, and that the management have to have the trust of the politicians, and so on. So this is the big picture. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I think you're talking about trust in the system, trust in leadership, and I think that, of course, this is also related to leadership and management training, with which I